Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing Imani Pierce ever did was reject my ring in front of her friends like it was a cheap joke, then look me dead in my face and tell me not to get sensitive while they laughed. Here's how it happened. We were on a rooftop lounge in downtown Atlanta, the kind with heat lamps, skyline views, and overpriced mocktails that make people feel important. Imani's friends, Tasha, Brielle, and Nia, were packed around our table like a little audience. Everybody was dressed like they had somewhere to be after this. Imani looked perfect, too. She always did it in public. Smooth edges, polished smile, CO energy. I stood up calmly, because calm is my default. I'm Cameron Holt, black man, late 20s, civil engineer. I build things that have to hold under pressure. I had the ring in my pocket all night, and I didn't pull out on impulse. I'd thought about it for weeks. I'd picked a moment I believed was safe. Imani has been sweet lately, more affectionate, more present, laughing at my jokes again. She'd been calling me husband as a tease. She'd even said, "I'm ready for the next step," while we folded laundry like we were already a family. So I stood there with the box in my palm and said, "I love you. I want us for real. Will you marry me?" Imani looked at the ring like it offended her. She didn't even reach for it. She leaned back, laughed loud, and said, "Oh my God. Cam, no." The table beside us turned their heads. Her friends made those high, excited noises people make when they smell drama. Imani slid the box back toward me with one finger. "This is sweet," she said, smiling like she was laying a kid down easy. "But I'm not wearing that. Not with my brand. Not with where I'm going." Tasha squinted like she was inspecting a flaw. "Wait, that's it." Brielle put a hand over her mouth like she couldn't hold it in. Nia whispered, "No," but her eyes were lit up like she wanted to watch the rest. Imani didn't shut them down. She didn't protect me. She let them laugh, then looked at me like I was the problem for standing there quietly. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't do the silent thing. You are about to be sensitive." I felt my face heat for a second, then my chest went still. That moment didn't break me. It clarified me. I closed the box gently like I was putting away something fragile, not because she deserved softness, but because I did. I looked at Imani and said, calm and clear, "I hear you." She blinked like she was waiting for the begging part. I didn't give it to her. I set cash down for my water, nodded once, and walked out while her friends laughed behind me like the night belonged to them. By the time the elevator doors closed, my hands weren't shaking. That's the part people don't understand about quiet men. They think silence means weakness. Sometimes silence means you're doing the math. I watch the numbers in my head the way I watch load calculations at work. What this can hold, what it can't, where the cracks have been forming, and how long before it fails completely. And Imani and I have been cracking up for a long time. That rooftop was just a moment the damage finally showed itself in daylight. When I met Imani, it was Chicago, back when her dream still sounded like a dream instead of a weapon. I was working on a project near the South Loop, wearing boots and a reflective vest, stopping at this little coffee spot that always smelled like cinnamon. Imani was there arguing, playful, not rude, with the barista about oat milk. When she turned and caught me smiling, she said, "Don't laugh at me, Mr. Construction." I said, "I'm civil engineering. I build what y'all drive on." She laughed like that was the coolest thing she'd heard all day. The early days were easy. She'd call me on lunch breaks just to ask what I was eating, then roast me when I said salad like I was pretending. We'd do Target runs and end up in the snack aisle debating chips like it was serious business. She'd jump on my back in the parking lot and say, "You're strong, huh?" Then she'd kiss my cheek and tell me I made her feel safe. I like that. I like being steady for somebody. I liked her too. Her big ideas, her confidence, the way she walked like she belonged anywhere she entered. When she told me she was an entrepreneur, it wasn't just a title. She really was working. She sold beauty products online, did pop-up events, and built a following. I respected that. I even helped quietly. I built her display shelves, fixed the wobbly legs on her table, made her a little spreadsheet for inventory, because numbers don't scare me. She'd look at me and say, "See, you're my secret weapon." Back then it felt like teamwork, like we were building something together. The first time I noticed the disrespect, It was small enough to ignore if you were invested in the picture. We were late to dinner because Imani took too long getting ready. I didn't complain. I just said we should go. She snapped, "Stop rushing me," even though I hadn't raised my voice. Later, she realized she'd misread the reservation time. I expected a simple, "My bad." Instead, she said, "Well, if you picked better restaurants, we wouldn't have to deal with this." It was slick. I let slide, but my mind recorded it. Another time, she forgot to send her half for the electric bill. I showed her the late fee email, calm as I always am. "Hey, we got hit with a fee," I said. "Can you send your part today?" She didn't apologize. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Why are you making it a thing?" she said. "Just pay it. You love being responsible so much." I waited for her to laugh like it was a joke. She didn't. She just kept scrolling. And I remember thinking, so accountability is optional when it's her. As we got more serious, she started treating my calm like it was a button she could press for entertainment. We'd be around her friends, and she'd say something slightly disrespectful, then watch my face to see if I'd react. One night in Houston at one of her pop-ups, a guy leaned too close while she was talking. Imani laughed extra hard, touched his arm, leaned in like she was performing. Then she glanced at me, quick, checking for jealousy. On the way to the car, I said, "That was disrespectful." She smiled like she'd won. "Ah, are you jealous?" she said. "Man up." I told myself she was immature in love, not malicious. I gave her grace. I'm not a paranoid man. I'm not insecure. I've never been the type to argue over attention. But disrespect is not the same thing as insecurity. Disrespect is when someone knows what hurts you and chooses it anyway because it makes them feel powerful. And with Imani, that choice started showing up more and more, especially when her friends were around. The worst part wasn't even the flirting. It was how she used her friends as a shield. If we argued privately, somehow it became group knowledge by morning. The first time I realized it, we were in D.C. visiting her friend Brielle. We went to brunch, and Brielle said, laughing, "So are we still doing the storyline where Cameron can't handle a strong woman?" My fork froze midair. I looked at Imani. "You told him that?" Imani didn't look embarrassed. She looked annoyed at me. "I vent," she said. "So what? That's our relationship," I said. "That's not content." She rolled her eyes. "You always make everything deep. It's not that serious." Brielle chimed in, "He is doing that quiet punishment thing, right?" And Imani laughed. That's when I understood the pattern. She'd paint me as the problem to her friends so they could help her win arguments I wasn't even in. Then she'd come home and act like we were fine because she got her validation elsewhere. I tried to address it like adults. One evening in our apartment, by then we'd moved to Atlanta for her bigger market plan and my job transfer, I said, "I need you to stop discussing our private issues with your friends." Imani stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot like she was calm, but her tone was sharp. "So you want to control who I talk to?" she asked. "No," I said. "I want respect." She laughed once short. "You're too sensitive, Cam." That line became her favorite. Too sensitive. Too quiet. Too serious. She'd throw those words at me like they explained everything. If I told her something hurt, she'd hit me with, "Man up." If I asked for an apology, she'd act like I was begging. If I wanted conversation, she'd call it drama. It taught me something important about her. She didn't want a partner. She wanted a stage, and she wanted me to play my part, supportive, stable, silent. When we started living together, the imbalance got louder. I handled the lease because my credit and income made it easy. She called it grown man stuff and told me to take care of it. I paid most of the bills on time because I don't play with rent. I fixed the loose cabinet door. I assembled the furniture. I kept the fridge stocked. Imani would say, "Babe, you're amazing," then turn around and act like it was expected. If I asked her to do something simple, pick up groceries, call maintenance, she'd sigh like I was stealing her time. "I'm building a business," she'd say. "You wouldn't understand." But I did understand. I understood being tired. I understood pressure. What I didn't understand was why her dreams gave her permission to disrespect me. The way she spoke about my job started shifting too. She'd introduce me as an engineer, but with a tone like I was the boring part of her life. One night at dinner with her friends, she said, "He's stable. Like clock-in stable." They laughed. She smiled. I stared at my plate and felt something in me quietly step back. Later in the car, I said, "Why would you say it like that?" She shrugged. "It's true," she said. "I'm just honest. Honesty without respect is just cruelty," I said. She laughed like I was quoting a book. "There you go," she said. "Always deep." Then she added casually, "Don't be mad because you're not a boss." My hand stayed on the wheel. My voice stayed calm, but my mind filed that away like evidence. Around that time, she started making major decisions without me, then acting shocked when I didn't clap. One Saturday, she came home glowing. "I signed a lease on a studio space," she announced like it was a surprise party. I blinked. "A lease?" I asked. "For how long?" She smiled wider. 2 years. My stomach dropped, not because I didn't believe in her, but because we lived together and shared responsibilities. "Imani," I said carefully, "that's a major commitment. We should have talked first." She frowned like I'd insulted her. "Why?" she snapped. "So you could talk me out of it? So we can plan?" I said. "We're a household." She rolled her eyes hard. "You're not my dad," she said. "I'm not asking permission." "I'm not asking you to ask permission," I said. "I'm asking you to treat me like a partner." She waved me off. "You're always trying to control things," she said. And that word, control, was her favorite way to make my boundaries sound toxic. Her friends poured gasoline on everything. If I questioned anything, suddenly I was insecure. If I wanted respect, I was fragile. I remember a night when Tasha was in our living room, feet on my coffee table like she paid rent. Imani was telling her about our argument, and Tasha said, "Men like Cameron want you to shrink." I looked over and said, "Calm, I've never asked her to shrink. I've asked her to stop disrespecting me." Tasha smirked. "There you go," she said, trying to sound smart. Imani laughed with her. Right in my house. That's when I stopped explaining myself to people who didn't want to understand. I didn't argue with Tasha. I didn't try to win Brielle over. I didn't perform masculinity for anybody. I just started moving differently. I started noting patterns. I started watching what happened when I didn't react. And what happened was, Imani got bolder. Because my silence gave her room to imagine she had power over me. Arguments started ending with name-calling. She'd call me soft. She'd call me weird. One time she called me broke during an argument about her spending, even though I paid most of the bills. When I stared at her, she said, "What? You're acting like a victim." Then she'd flip the script. "You're doing that quiet punishment thing again." It was like she wanted me loud, so she could label me aggressive. But if I stayed calm, she labeled me manipulative. No matter what, she needed me to be wrong. There were good moments still, which is how people stay too long. She could be funny. She could be affectionate. Sometimes she'd crawl into bed and rest her head on my chest and say, "You know I love you, right?" And I'd say, "I love you too." Sometimes we'd dance in the kitchen again, and for a second it felt like the beginning. Then her phone would buzz. She'd glance at a message from her friends, and her whole energy would shift into performance mode, like she remembered she had an image to maintain. The night I almost left the first time, it was after dinner in Los Angeles with some influencer couple she admired. On the way home, she said, "Did you see their lifestyle?" I said, "They seem happy." She scoffed. "Happy isn't enough," she said. "You got to be impressive." I stayed quiet. She looked at me and said, "Don't get in your feelings." I asked, "Do you even like me?" She stared at me like I was asking for too much. "I like what we can be," she said. That answer sat in my chest like a stone. After that, I started protecting myself in quiet ways. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten her. I just began separating my peas from her mood swings. I started sending my portion of household money on schedule and keeping records. I stopped using my card for her business expenses that never got paid back. I changed my passwords. I moved my important documents into a folder in my office. I stopped sharing every thought with her because every thought became group chat material. Imani noticed the shift and tried to poke at it. "Why are you so distant?" she asked one night, scrolling. I said, "I'm not distant. I'm tired." She laughed. "Of what?" "Of being disrespected," I said. She sat up like she was offended. "You always say that," she snapped. "You act like I'm beating you." "Words can do damage," I said. "Your friends do more damage than you admit." She rolled her eyes. "My friends tell me the truth," she said. "They tell you what you want to hear," I said. That's when she hit me with her favorite threat, the one she used like a reset button. You know I could do better than this, right? She said, voice flat. Imani, I said calmly, if you believe that, you should go do better. She blinked. She wasn't used to me agreeing. She stared at me like I'd broken the script. Then she laughed to cover it. Okay, she said. Whatever. But I saw the moment she realized I wasn't scared of losing her the way I used to be. A week later, she created another public moment. We were at a small get-together at Brielle's place in Atlanta, and Imani started teasing me about my job in front of everyone. Cameron is acting like he's saving the world, she said, sipping her drink. But he was just out there measuring stuff. People laughed politely. I said calmly, infrastructure matters. She smirked. See? He always has to correct somebody. Then she added, sometimes I feel like I'm dating an old man. Her friends laughed harder. I sat there quiet, not because I couldn't respond, but because I could feel myself leaving her emotionally, piece by piece. That night at home, I told her, you embarrass me. She shrugged. You embarrass yourself by taking it seriously, she said. It's a joke. A joke is funny to both people, I said. You keep doing it in front of your friends. She crossed her arms. Because you need to loosen up, she said. You're too stiff. Too sensitive. Then she said it again, like she knew it would stick. Man up. That was the first time I looked at her and felt nothing but distance. The proposal night came after a short, good streak. Imani had been kinder for a couple weeks. She'd been affectionate, saying, we've been through stuff, but we're solid. She'd been talking about marriage in that vague way people do when they want the idea, but not the accountability. I told myself maybe she was growing up. Maybe living together was hard and she was learning. I chose hope. That was my mistake. Because hope without evidence is just denial with better lighting. On that rooftop in Atlanta, when she rejected the ring with her friends watching, it wasn't just about jewelry. It was about respect. She didn't just say no. She made it entertainment. She put me on stage and let her friends laugh at my sincerity like it was embarrassing to love her. And when I walked out calm, I felt something settle in me. The relationship was over. Not because she said no, because she said no cruelly. I went home that night and slept on the couch without drama. Imani came in around 2 in the morning, smelling like perfume and outside air, and stood over me like she wanted a confrontation. So you really left? She asked. I opened my eyes and said, I left the table. You're going to be mad forever? She said. I'm not mad, I said. I'm aware. She scoffed. You always got to be dramatic. I sat up slowly. Imani, I said, you rejected me in front of your friends. She waved her hand. It wasn't like that. How was it? I asked. She hesitated, then said the truth in the ugliest packaging. You could have done better. I'm not wearing something small. People watch me. People, I repeated. Your friends. My audience, she corrected. That word, audience, told me everything. She didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as a supporting character. And the moment I stopped being useful to her image, she felt entitled to shame me. The next morning, I went to work like normal. I don't fall apart at my job. My team needed me on site, and I had a concrete pour scheduled. But even while I was walking to the job site, hard hat on, clipboard in hand, my mind was calm and strategic. I thought about the lease. I thought about utilities. I thought about shared accounts. I thought about how Imani escalates when she feels control slipping. I didn't want to blow up. I wanted to clean. Exit. That's what engineers do. Prevent catastrophic failure by addressing the structural issue. On my lunch break, I called the leasing office. I asked what my options were for notice. The manager, Ms. Alvarez, spoke in that professional tone that tells you she's heard every story. If you're ending the relationship, she said, do everything by the lease. Give written notice. Follow dates. Keep copies. That's the plan, I said. She paused and said softer, good. Do it clean. That was all the encouragement I needed. I didn't want revenge. I want to be free without chaos. That evening, Imani acted like nothing happened. She kissed my cheek, asked what I wanted for dinner, and started talking about a new content plan. I watched her move around the kitchen like she still belonged to my future. We should do couples content, she said casually. People love that. I stared at her. After last night, I asked. She rolled her eyes. Are you still on that? She snapped. Cam, You gotta let stuff go. You're too sensitive. Then she smiled like she was being cute. Come on, don't be weird. I didn't argue. I ate my food. I went to bed early. And when she fell asleep, I opened my laptop and started making moves quietly. I redirected my paycheck into a new account she didn't know about. I changed my direct deposit. I reviewed autopay lists. I canceled subscriptions that were in my name but used mostly by her. I changed the Wi-Fi account password. I gathered receipts for big household purchases, TV, couch, the dining set, anything I paid for. Not because I wanted to fight, because I knew if she felt embarrassed, she'd try to punish me financially. Over the next few days, I acted normal on the surface. Calm, polite, low conversation. Imani seemed to sense something because she started pushing buttons harder. She FaceTimed her friends in our living room and talked about me like I wasn't there. He was mad because I said no to that little ring, she laughed. Tasha's voice came through the phone. Girl, he's lucky you even stayed with him. Brielle said, he needs to level up. Imani looked at me and raised her eyebrows like she wanted me to snap. I didn't. I just stood up and went to the bedroom, closing the door quietly. That night, she followed me. Why are you walking away? She demanded. Because I'm not performing, I said. Performing? She scoffed. You always think you are better than everybody. No, I said. I think I deserve respect in my own home. She laughed sharp. Respect, she repeated. You act like you're perfect. I looked at her. I'm not perfect, I said. But I don't humiliate you. She shrugged like that didn't matter. Then she said it, a clean threat like she was stating the weather. If you can't handle me, I'll replace you. I nodded once. Okay, I said. That was it. No argument. No pleading. No, please don't. Her face tightened because she expected me to fight for her. She wanted to feel chosen while treating me like an option. When I didn't give her that, she got loud. So you don't care? She snapped. I care, I said. I'm just done being disrespected. You're always playing victim, she said. No, I answered. I'm making a decision. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. The following Monday, I went to the leasing office in person. I wore work clothes because I wasn't there to dramatize, I was there to handle business. Ms. Alvarez printed the forms, explained timelines, and I filled them out carefully. I gave notice the right way. I made copies. I took photos. I asked about transferring utilities and the process for removing my name from anything possible. When I left the office, the air felt lighter. Not because I hated Imani, because I finally stopped fighting for someone who treated my dignity like a negotiable item. I scheduled movers for my things only. I didn't choose a day Imani would be home because I didn't want a scene. I chose a morning she had a content meeting and Tasha was supposed to pick her up. Perfect. Quiet. Professional. I moved my clothes, my tools, my books, my documents, the TV I bought, the couch I bought, the table I bought. Anything that was clearly mine, I took. I didn't touch her belongings. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't leave a mess. My goal wasn't to hurt her. My goal was to leave clean. When Imani came home that afternoon, she stopped in the doorway like her breath got stolen. The apartment looked like someone had erased my presence with an efficient hand. No photos. No extra shoes by the door. No big TV dominating the living room. The Wi-Fi name wasn't showing up on her phone anymore. She turned slowly like she was looking for the hidden camera. Cameron, she called, voice sharp. I stepped out of the bedroom with an envelope in my hand. Calm. What is this? She demanded. Behind her, Tasha walked in already talking. Girl, Then she saw the room and stopped. Imani snatched the envelope from my hand like she wanted control of the story. She opened it and read the lease timeline and utility instructions. Her face turned red. So you're just leaving? She said. Yes, I said. After you rejected me like that, yes. You're punishing me, she snapped. No, I said. I'm protecting myself. Tasha found her voice again. That's petty, she said, stepping forward like she paid rent. I looked at her, calm, and said, You've been very comfortable disrespecting me in my home. That ends today. Tasha laughed like I was funny. Boy, please, she said. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, Don't call me boy. The room went quiet for a second. Even Imani looked surprised. Because calm doesn't mean soft. Calm means controlled. Imani tried to switch tactics. She softened her voice like she was selling something. Babe, we can talk, she said, eyes shiny. You're doing too much. I stared at her. Talk about what? I asked. About how you humiliated me. About how your friends treat me. About how you refuse to apologize when you're wrong. Her face hardened again. You're always bringing up old stuff, she snapped. Because it never stopped, I said. It just got dressed up as jokes. She stepped closer, voice rising. So because I said no to your little ring, you threw everything away? No, I said. Because you used your friends to disrespect me for months. She scoffed. You're too sensitive, she said again, like it was scripture. Man up. I held her gaze. A man doesn't stay where he's not respected, I said. That's what I'm doing. She blinked like she didn't like the way that sounded coming from me. Then she tried to scare me back into place. You know I can replace you, she said, chin lifted. You know men are in my DMs. I nodded. I know, I said. Go be great. That answer landed like a slap because it didn't give her drama. It didn't give her a struggle. It didn't give her a story to tell her friends where she was the prize being fought over. It just gave her the truth. I was no longer applying for the role. The karma didn't come from me doing something cruel. It came from reality doing what reality does when you've been floating on somebody else's stability. Imani's studio lease was still due every month. The bills were still due. The lifestyle she performed still cost money. And the friends who were bold with advice weren't bold with assistance. Tasha stopped answering when Imani started asking for a little help. Brielle had excuses. Nia sent prayers and emojis. Nobody offered rent. A month after I moved out, Imani called me late at night. Her voice sounded different, less polished. Can we talk? She asked. We can, I said. She hesitated. I didn't think you'd actually leave, she admitted. I leaned back in my chair and stared at my quiet apartment. My real peace, not a staged version. That's the problem, I said. You thought disrespect didn't have consequences. She exhaled. It was just jokes, she whispered. Your friend were playing. They weren't playing, I said. They were practicing. Silence. Then she tried to back into accountability without actually stepping into it. Okay, I'm sorry you felt. Stop, I said, calm but firm. If you're sorry, say you're sorry for what you did. She went quiet again, and that quiet told me she still didn't want responsibility. She wanted relief. She wanted me to absorb the weight again, so she could go back to being shiny. I'm sorry, she finally said, small. I shouldn't have done you like that. I listened because I'm not cruel, but I didn't melt. Thank you, I said. I accept that. Her voice lifted with hope. So, can we fix it? She asked quickly, like she was grabbing a rope. No, I said. The word was soft, but it was final. Why not? She asked, panic slipping in. Because you didn't just disrespect me, I said. You made it normal. She got angry then, because anger is easier than shame. So you're just going to leave me struggling? She snapped. There it is, I said quietly. You still think I owe you saving. You're really going to do me like this? She said. Imani, I said, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm choosing what I won't accept. She scoffed. Whatever, she muttered. You'll regret this. No, I said. I'm already relieved. 2 weeks later, I heard through a mutual contact that she lost the studio. Not because the world was against her. Because the numbers didn't lie. Late payments turned into warnings. Warnings turned into fees. Fees turned into a lease she couldn't sustain without the cushion she never respected. She had to move her stuff out, quietly, embarrassed. No cameras, no friends, no boss soundtrack. And the same people who laughed at my ring weren't there to lift a box. The last time I saw Imani in person was by accident at a grocery store in Atlanta. Early evening, fluorescent lights making everybody look tired. She was standing by the produce, hair pulled back, face bare, staring at avocados like she didn't trust anything anymore. When she saw me, her eyes widened, then softened, like she wanted to say 1,000 things at once. I nodded once, polite. She opened her mouth. Then she closed it, because there was nothing left to negotiate. I walked past her, grabbed what I needed, and checked out in peace. Outside, the air was cool and normal, like the world didn't care about our drama. And that was the point. Love isn't supposed to feel like a performance review. Respect isn't supposed to be something you beg for. I got in my car, started the engine, and felt my life settle back into my body. Some people don't learn until the door closes, so I closed it calmly. If you enjoyed this kind of calm, calculated comeback, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next story is even wilder. Also, check the next video on screen for another Quiet Man revenge story where the truth hits even harder. And if you want part 2 style stories like this daily, comment more Atlanta stories. The end.